tell me a little bit about sort of, I mean, your role kind of overseeing the digital investments, et cetera. But I mean, because we're going to dive into programmatic, right? But like, is that really meaningful to you guys, like in the big picture of things?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know how much we spend. For me, that's not necessarily a focus. I'm more concerned about the return than the investment.
Fair.
So certainly, that's what it's all about. I think if we go a level deeper, spend probably wouldn't be the second thing that I think about either. It would be, what may be a universal term we could talk about would be a user, a consumer, what we call a guest. That moment that we reach a guest and how we deliver value to them and how we're relevant and meaningful to them would be the second thing. So this world is so complicated. I don't know how often we get past two. So I actually don't think about investment all that often, to be honest. It's not that important to me.
From the perspective of sort of just outsiders listening to our conversation now, I mean, you guys are real about programmatic. You're spending mid, $150, $200 million, right? There's significant dollars behind programmatic. It's not an experiment for you anymore.
That's right.
I think that's the key of what I want to dive into.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely true. And we had the chance to talk just a little bit before, but you asked, is it about efficiency or is it about efficacy? And I said it's both, and I think it is both, but ultimately it's the outcome that matters. And when we think about a really complex world and initiatives where there may be target audiences that certainly are at scale, regardless of how much they scale, it's lots and lots of people. And so to deliver the right person, the right message to the right person at the right time, at the right cost, programmatic looks really attractive, right? How can a human do that? So I think it's both, but it's the efficacy maybe that means more.
But I think, so this is one of the, Matt sort of alluded to the P word. I say programmatic's like gluten. Everybody talks about it, is afraid of it, but nobody really knows what it is.
Yeah.
So I feel like your definition of programmatic feels to be a bit more expansive, because when you say programmatic, you're talking about creative decisioning, automation around actually whether or not we buy an ad, forget determining how to target it or how to auction the price in real time, right? Like there's a more expansive definition operationally of programmatic for you. Can you take us through that a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. So I think somebody, sort of one of the gists of the previous conversation is how relevant is the term programmatic and what do you think about that? And I don't want to get too deep into that, but I actually don't use the word anymore. I really don't. I talk about automated marketing. And I think that sort of supports what you just suggested, is that it's about something that maybe is broader than just what our TV media. That would be a component of it. But to me, it's about leveraging rules and automation to deliver that right message to the right customer at the right time. And so it's creative, it's targeting, it's measurement, it's economics, it's all these factors that come together into a discipline that we like to call automated marketing. And I think within that, programmatic is certainly a really key piece, and the principles of programmatic carry through for sure.
So let's take the conversation let's go to the concentric circle around the actual investment and the methodology, right, or the operational sort of way with which you're spending. It feels like key enablers to automated marketing, as you describe it, are a sort of data-driven marketing DNA.
Totally.
And then you guys have to have a really good sense of who your customers are.
That's right.
So take me through how those sort of like those ancillary, functions or that ancillary brain trust enables automated marketing and enables, I think, the higher ROI that you're talking about.
Yeah. So when I started at Target 4 years ago, I was fortunate enough to walk into a situation where we had a great sort of traditional customer database. Probably one of the better ones in the industry, which is fantastic. We also had a relatively mature digital data management, clickstream data, right? But those things were completely separate. What we've been able to do is to bring those things together in certain ways to get a more holistic view of our customer, and I think that's where everything starts. In some ways, the customer is a living, breathing person. It's Ashley, it's Patrick. But the layer just down from that is data. I mean, that's how we transact. That's how I can understand Ashley. That's how I can reach Patrick in real time. So data is absolutely critical. And then your foundational data set is crucial. So for us, it was a CRM data set, and then clickstream data from all of our digital properties, from Cartwheel, from Target.com, MWeb, all the properties that we have where we interact with the guest, and bringing that together to get a more singular view of the customer. And we're not there yet. There's a lot of barriers in those things, and but we're closer to that. And so if we start there, then it's about making that extensible into the ecosystem, right? And so, historically that would have been cookies. Cookies are really important. And cookies still are. They're viable. I will rail against cookies, but they're viable. They're imperfect, but they're necessary, and they're part of the ecosystem, but they're not the only part of the ecosystem. There's other ways now that we can reach the customer, identify the guest, and move towards a more holistic conversation and better measuring outcomes.
So I'm really interested when we talk about automation, not just sort of the fact that we're using technology in different ways, right? But like, what's the downstream and upstream impact to the value chain, right? So let's talk about how you actually buy the media, right? Is this all private exchange? Is it pre-negotiated? Is it upfront, pre-committed? Is it a select sort of cachet of, does 80% of your spend go to 20% of your publishers? Like, do you use agencies? Like, tell me a little bit about what the sort of the ecosystem around this looks like.
Sure, so we can start with inventory. So I view the sort of world of inventory, that's where we reach the customer, as sort of twofold. There's the closed world, the walled gardens, and then there's the open world. In the closed world, players like Facebook and YouTube are very important. Pinterest is important to us, and others. But there's really a handful of players in that space that are really significant, I think, to brands. And that list changes from brand to brand, but ultimately it's a small list wherever you go. On the other side, it's the open inventory. And for us, and this is where sort of I think the human resource sort of efficiency piece comes in, is that we found ourselves from initiative to initiative, campaign to campaign, revisiting kind of the same question over and over again. And it dawned on us that it wasn't an initiative or a campaign level question. It was a target question. It was an enterprise question. It was a customer question. Where are the places that our customer values, right? And so when we looked at it through that lens, we realized that it's not static, but it's not something that needs to be reinvented for every single campaign. There's a set of places that are relevant to our customer that are relatively consistent over time. And so from there, you can think of a consistent set of publishers. And then you can think about...
And do you discern that through your clickstream data and your first-party data and sort of a collection of cookies, or do you discern that from qualitative research?
I think it's both. So you can think about the Nielsen's and the Comscores as a starting point. But then over time, as you collect more data and gain more insight, then you can start to place a value on that relationship, right? So I have a relationship with Yahoo or a relationship with ESPN, whoever it might be. But now this is something that exists in perpetuity. It's not based on a campaign. It's a living, breathing manifestation of our relationship, right? And for us, that's a deal ID today, but it's just a better way to work with publishers. And it's one where our objectives are united, right? So if you think about all the good partnerships that I've been involved with, they all start with uniting the objectives, right? That's really key. We have to be vested. Our sort of interests have to be aligned in some way. And I think this notion of a private exchange helps facilitate that. It also facilitates communication, and ultimately it creates a relationship whose foundation is on results. So every month, somebody on my team sends out a newsletter, and it reports on the health of our Bullseye marketplace. And it enables conversations with individual publishers that elevate results over time, and that's mutually beneficial. The winners are the people who perform well. But you start those conversations
with a clear articulation of business KPIs. That's something to your credit, I think. That's what I discerned from our conversation.
Yeah, and I don't want to sort of mislead anybody.
It's not a moving target.
It's imperfect. It's still relying on KPIs that are not ideal, but every day we get into a better space. And certainly the transparency and the dynamics of the relationship, that foundation are set, which I think is meaningful. Awesome. And so most of our RTB inventory comes from Bullseye Marketplace. I think it's like 98% today, almost all of it.
Okay. So just one final question before we wrap up. I believe the number you said was somewhere around 25% of total media investment is what you would define as programmatic right now. Is your ideal that's 100? Like, how do you think that's going to scale?
So. No, I don't think everything is programmatic. I think there are relationships that maybe transcend programmatic and aren't maybe that's not the right methodology to approach them. You think about the Olympics, that could have a programmatic layer,
right?
But maybe there's a really great brand reason to be there, and maybe there are unique content or creative elements that can't be achieved programmatically. So I don't envision a world that's 100% programmatic, but I do envision a world where the sort of the use case, where that aligns and where the methodology aligns, I think more can be programmatic for sure, a lot more.